Is reality what we really think it is, or was the Matrix spot on? After you get done listening these glitch in the Matrix stories, you may just start wondering the same thing. 1. Bitter Samurai. 1 year, back in college, my friends and I would always all go to the cafeteria across campus together for lunch. There were about 8-10 of us on any given day, so normally you had 3-4 of us in a huddle followed by the other 3-4. I was in the back group and we passed between these two bushes. Then the weirdest feeling just washed over me. Something felt changed and I was a bit disoriented. We all kinda just stopped and looked at each other while the first group just kept going. Someone was missing. We all kinda just knew it. To this day, I have no idea who it was. Everyone was accounted for, but we couldn't shake the feeling that someone was just gone. Miss you, mysterious friend who just vanished. Number 2. Boring psychopath. 4 years, I was a kid and my mom and I were outside taking pictures of old cars, to sell, in the backwoods area of our yard. All of a sudden my mom hears rustling in the bush and she tells me to run. I had flip-flops on, so I kicked them off and booked it. Behind me, I didn't hear my mom, but I heard like a rusty clanking sound, like something jumped on the cars. While running, I didn't see my mom. I got into the house panicked and there my mom was, sitting at the table reading the paper. What the heck? Edit, yay top comment. For that, I have went forward and asked my mom about this again. It's been many years and I am an adult now. When I asked her, she looked at me funny and said she didn't remember any of it at all, just the cars that were in the backyard that got sold. Yep. She's a skinwalker/alien/goatman/lesbian twin sister. Number 3. Ophel. 5 years, not creepy, but so vivid and distinct that I still think about it, years later. I had a, subjectively, long, involved dream where I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them in a cart and going to get ice, then haggling for ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, then going to a market to my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real. I talked to friends, smoked nasty cigarettes, haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea and just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish I hadn't sold, sling with some veggies and rice that I traded for. I drank more tea, relaxed for a while, then drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked some more cigs, then went to bed. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks to buy fresh catch. Except I was in my house, next to my wife, truck parked outside and it was Saturday, no work. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon and the car was already packed. Weird thing was, in the dream, I was single. And a smoker, I'm not. And the whole long dream had been in fluent Chinese. The effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifetime of speaking it. Oh, and I had been Chinese. I'm a big, hairy white dude, somewhat fluent in Spanish and I know a little bit of Russian, but I've never. It was just weird. I've never worked in a fish market. I wonder who I was. I wonder what that was. Number 4. Nobrobron. 5 years, my boyfriend told me this one, and his sister and mom confirm it. He was driving through Texas on his way to visit relatives. It's dead of night on a 10-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. He hasn't passed a gas station in a while, and his tank was getting low, so decided to fill up at the next available station. After a while he rolls into a small town. There's a lit-up diner on the right and local gas station on the left. All the lights are on and cars filling up, so he figures this place is open. It seems to be exceptionally busy for this time of night, but he really needs gas, so decides to wait in line to fill up. There's only 2 cars ahead of him, so it shouldn't take long. At this point his sister wakes up in the back seat. What's taking so long? It's been like 10 minutes and not one car has moved. Then all of a sudden his sister blurts out, none of the people are moving. Sure enough, The people waiting in the cars, the people filling up, the cashier and people in the convenience store. None had moved since they pulled up to the station. His heart is racing at this point, but he pulls up to get a closer look. Sure enough, every single person at this gas station is a mannequin. So basically they peeled out of there, and never looked back. I wish they had taken pictures because I would have loved to see it. Number 5. The Josh Watson 1 year. When I was about 15 I was eating some cereal and accidentally dropped my spoon into the kitchen floor. I watched the spoon fall. As it hit the floor, it just vanished into thin air. I was shocked. I thought surely my eyes were playing tricks on me. It must have just bounced away and gone out of sight or something. I spent 30 minutes searching the kitchen for that spoon. I was honestly kind of freaked out. I tried to think of every possible place it could have gone. There weren't many places it could have ended up. I never found it. Number 6. Biostrike 14 1 year. Not long after 9/11, on a Friday, I got up to go to class and had one of those mornings. Broke a glass getting something to drink, tripped over something going to my car, was late to class due to a wreck on the way there, not me thankfully. While at school we heard about a plane crashing. Something about the wings blowing off. Went to work, went home. The next morning my roommate wakes me asking if I'm skipping class today. After he convinces me it is still Friday I get up and go to class, after noticing the glass I broke is not broke. On the way I pass the same wreck in the same spot. All day I wait to hear about the plane but it never happens, ends up kinda a normal day. The next day they arrest the shoe bomber and I have wondered if someone rewound that day to stop him and somehow I didn't reset with it. Number 7. Avocados_are_great 1 year. A couple of weeks ago my dog Koda came into my room and started to try to jump on my bed, which she was successful of doing after a couple of tries, and I gave her a little nudge to get off my bed. She jumped down and left. Then I heard my phone downstairs, so I walked down and get a call from my grandma who said she made some food. So I said okay, I will stop by and come eat. I get my jacket on and get ready to leave. I get my keys and grab my dog's leash to take her. We got in the car and drove for about 10 minutes, then arrived. I was eating and talking to my grandma and things. But when I was getting ready to leave I couldn't find Koda. I searched everywhere in the backyard, in the front, outside, nowhere to be found. After a good hour of searching my grandma's neighborhood it started to get dark. It was about 9:30ish, so I decided to come back and check. The next day I left and went to sleep. The next morning I woke up because I heard something downstairs. To my surprise it was my dog, and at that point I thought, wait, what? Later I came back to my grandma's to tell her I found my dog. As soon as I arrived I told. After I told her about how Koda was home I thought to myself, did I even bring her? I asked my grandma and she said yes I did, because I left the leash in her living room. I then asked my grandma to watch her footage on her cameras from last night, and there was no footage of the Koda in the street or leaving the front door. But there was footage of her entering the house with me. I went home later, Koda was still there. Until this day I still don't know what happened. Number 8. CAD Neff 1 year. Was brushing my teeth with one hand, putting the toothpaste down with my other and turning on the tap with my third hand. I only noticed it a few moments after. I couldn't piece it together, but they all happened at the same time. Number 9. Riki Rival 1 year. I spilled chocolate ice cream on my leg. I wiped it off and there was still a pale brown stain in the shape of the ice cream splotch. I told my mother, who said it was a birthmark. I will swear under oath that never before that moment did I have a birthmark there. Number 10. Tempted to soon 7 years, to throw away account cause this is really personal. My last semester at a certain college I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. Note, he was 325 pounds, I was 120 pounds. While unconscious on the ground I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady, she made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years we got married and almost immediately she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2 my wife, bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day while sitting on the couch I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed, I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I left the couch only to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped that too as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come and try to talk to me. By this time my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real, my wife, my kids. None of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises and I became aware of pain. A fucking shit ton of pain. The first words I said were "I'm missing teeth" and opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out. I was completely confused. At some point a cop scooped me up, dragged, walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive and give CT scans and shit. I went through about 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep hoping I would see her in my dreams. I never have, but sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. Edit, 24 hours after post. Never though anyone would read this, I changed a line so that it no longer seems that my 2-year-old daughter bore a child. I have never seen Inception or the Star Trek episode so many have mentioned, but I will eventually. I will not do an AMA. I've had many PMs describing similar experiences and 3 posters stating such experiences are impossible. I'd say more research needs to be done on brain functions. Primed students, don't assume you know everything. A few have asked if they can write a book, screenplay, stage play, rage comic etc. Please consider this tale open source and have fun with it. Is the Matrix real? Seriously. Because, if it is, you can pop out now, Keanu. If you enjoyed the video please give a thumbs up. And if you have true stories or suggestions please send them to dreamlandorchard@gmail.com. Thank you for watching Dreamland Orchard.